Gentlemen, we're ready. Let's do this thing.
Testing, testing. I believe we are waiting on one more, but maybe we can start with a quick warm-up. So, nice to meet you, everybody. My name is Larry David. I head up business development for a new NFT aggregator on ETH. It's called Skillet. We are an NFT finance aggregator, and I will be your color commentator today. I think we can start with some quick introductions. I'm joined by Mattey, Joao, Fiadeiro, and one of my co-founders actually should be joining us very shortly. But, as a way to kick off, I've had the pleasure of being able to meet you guys. I would love if you could give me your NFT stories, everything that led up to what brought you on this stage, and then, a little bit what you're working on.
Thanks, Larry. My name is Mattey. I'm the collector's ambassador for the marketplace Known Origin. I'm also just an art collector in general. I started collecting art about 7 years ago and went through the whole crypto thing, and then around the end of 2020 got into NFTs and basically found a great comparison between collecting NFTs and collecting art, and eventually led me to a lot of crazy tangents in my life. But for the last year now, I've been working with a small museum in upstate New York, and they're going to be adding a whole NFT wing, and I was fortunate enough to be able to advise on that project. So that's going to be kind of opened up this summer, and I'll speak a little bit more about that, but we'll get the introductions going.
All right, thank you. I'm Joao Fiadeiro. I lead product management at Jump Crypto. Day to day, I don't do much in the NFT world. It's mostly a sort of thing that I do after work or outside of work. But at work, I lead on all sorts of projects around cross-chain infrastructure, R&D, around custody, things like that. But my journey into NFTs started through my passion around generative art. I've always enjoyed that fascinating combination of art, code, technology in general, and realized when NFTs came up around 2017 with CryptoKitties that the sorts of mechanics you could create were really fascinating. And so that got me into that whole space, and recently got more into collecting, and obviously now with these guys, Skillet, more and more interested in the sort of aspects at the intersection of like DeFi and NFTs and how you can create new markets around that too.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. My name is Sergeant Pepper. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Skillet. My background is mainly in tech, and I was actually a PM in big tech, and as soon as I had the opportunity to leave to work Web3 full-time, I happily did that and have not looked back. So in terms of getting into NFTs, I've been aware of crypto since, I'd say, 2013. Had no money to, put into Bitcoin, but have been watching it over the years. And it wasn't until 2017 with the ICO bubble that I got to see, the real potential of what blockchains can actually enable, right? All these protocols had all these tokens. There were a bunch of really cool projects at that time. Of course, I lost a lot of money in 2017, but I actually was early to the NFT kind of craze in 2021. So, it was my second or third cycle at that point. What gets me really excited, I guess, about a blockchain is like the financialization of all these things and how institutions can actually, benefit greatly from it. So I'm sure we're going to get into a lot of that here on this panel. But that's a little bit about me.
Awesome, guys. Thank you. We need to breathe some life into this room and, frankly, in this building.
Yep.
This talk is called NFTs and Institutions, and we have seen the market dissipate over the past couple of years. We are not hiding that. And, it's our job to help onboard the next billion users, right? That's the big buzzword that's been going around the past couple years. So there are many learnings that we can take away from the macro level. What got me most excited about NFTs was the most rapid adoption of the technology that I've ever seen in my lifetime. Big brands, the biggest companies pouring money into the space because clearly there was something here. That being said, for a number of reasons, whether they failed to properly invest in it or failed to really address what's going on in the Web3 community, there are a lot of learning still that these major institutions can take from what's happening here right now. So I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on, at the macro level, what can institutions learn from what's happening in the NFT space, and then if you want to apply it to what you're currently working on, that'd be great as well.
Thanks, Larry. Yeah, that's a good starting point. When I began working on this project about a year ago, I was recommended through a friend, and it just kind of started with an email. And to say the least, trying to get a small museum to understand and grasp NFTs over a couple months is hard, and this took about a year of back and forths and me going there, because I think that what helped out the most was me being able to spell out the technology to them, just like in layman's terms, on a whiteboard. And when they saw how it's not that blockchain isn't that hard. When you explain how provenance works through blockchain, you can kind of see how they start grasping that concept. Once I started doing that, it was kind of easier and downhill from there. And yeah, it's going to be a great project opening in June, and I can't reveal the museum yet, but it will be opening in June. So it's a new wing, and yeah, they're going to be doing a lot of digital art there, and hopefully they're going to be also collecting NFTs as well, because we helped them onboard that. So that's kind of something that they learned from Web3 people, was that blockchain can be used in a number of different ways, and provenance is just one of them. So
Yeah, I mean, what do you guys think? Going back to, Larry, your original question, and Mattey, I think you offer like a lot of perspective on the museum side, which I know we can explore more, but I think institutions, like there's a right way and a wrong way that they can implement this stuff. So, I mean, everyone in this room, if we knew to sell our bags, right, when Pepsi was tweeting like all those cringe-ass like Web3 tweets, that would have been great to know. And I think that's the wrong way of institutions kind of entering the Web3 space. I think the right way deals with incentives. And these institutions need to realize like how strong the communities are in Web3, because everyone has a vested interest in having that community actually succeed, because then everyone wins financially. And so I think if they use Web3 to like properly incentivize their users in ways that hasn't really been popular or very applicable in Web 2, I think that's how they bridge the gap and enter Web 3. So would love your guys' takes on that.
Yeah. I think the aspect of community is really crucial. I think the angle here, to your point, Larry, around like what institutions can learn from the NFT world, I think is community-centric product development. When you have incentivized communities, they're much louder. They're much more likely to give you the feedback you need to develop your products. I spent 8 years at Google. We used to spend $100 in Amazon and in gift cards to get feedback. And you can see how the sort of incentives start getting a little messed up, right? When people are paid to give feedback. In the NFT world, you go to any Discord server, they're loud, and they're going to give you feedback. And so I think when you have larger institutions who are building products, they tend to operate in a fairly insular way. And a lot of these institutions can learn by being a lot more present in these communities, a lot more engaged, and actually solicit feedback in a way that actually makes product development a lot more iterative and a lot more interesting and a lot more useful for the people actually using those products.
I'm not an expert, and frankly, I hate to make a sweeping generalization. I don't think any of us are, because there are none in this space. I have experience being in the NFT space from early 2021, but it doesn't take an expert to observe what's happening right and what's happening wrong. Sean, to address your point on Pepsi, it could have been a home run to engage people with their NFTs. Maybe NFT holders get to go on the field for the Pepsi halftime show at the Super Bowl. There's a million very small tweaks that these institutions can make while they are trying to invest in NFTs. They understand that technology is very powerful, but for one reason or another, they're just failing to make the leap in the right way. And
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree, right? Their heads were in the right spot. The problem was it was all talk and no execution whatsoever. And like you said, the bar is very low. I mean, I remember minting some, rug Budweiser NFT when that first came out, and it's like I was promised like a case of beer. What happened? It's just one case of beer. I don't know how much I paid for the mint, but it was way more than what a case of beer should cost. So it just comes down to like actually executing on the plan, and the bar is so low with these rugs that it doesn't take much to actually deliver some type of value. So that would be my take on it.
Yeah. I think there's some sort of like institutional aspects that are sort of fossilized that make it really hard for people to hire the right folks, right? I think Pepsi, we don't want to keep centering on Pepsi, but like, certain large organizations, they think that, hey, like we need to get into this NFT thing, let's hire a marketing agency that probably doesn't know too much, or at least is likely not crypto native, and let's send out a few tweets and make everybody cringe. I think what I've observed also is the fact that when you have large institutions, they're monolithic, they're hierarchical. It makes it really difficult to actually hire young people who are actually crypto native. I'm a total boomer at this point. Like, it's crazy. I'm 10 years older than the people I work with. But these are people who grew up living and breathing crypto. They were like 12 years old and exposed to Bitcoin, which is nuts to me. Those are the people who know the currency, that have the social currency to like operate in a marketing context, and indeed in other contexts as well, in a way that actually doesn't make everybody cringe. So I think a lot of that is how can institutions learn to be more nimble, more flexible, and acknowledge that the way things are done in Web3 is very disruptive.
And looking at the granular level right now, there aren't many successful projects that these institutions can model themselves off of. I mean, there's a reason that the perception of NFTs in the mainstream is completely negative, and it should be. I could count on one hand, and that is being generous, the amount of collections out there right now that actually are building a product or actually providing value behind, the art that represents ownership in the project. I hope we can all agree on that. And if we don't, then we can have a conversation about it. But the point is, if you're not building something meaningful behind it, and if you're not finding ways to keep people engaged beyond just the mint and the pursuit of profit, there will never be a success, and we will never be able to grow. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts about that.
I mean, I have some takes. I tend to agree with you, Larry. Really, the biggest value add that we've seen from these projects so far is like doing the Yuga model of just continuous airdrops. Just like the expectation that I will get more because there will either be a token or like unlimited mints. I think that trend needs to kind of stop, and there does need to be more value. Sure, Yuga has like Ape Fest, but they raised like $500 million. So it's like, where is all that going? What are these projects actually going to do to deliver something that is meaningful and will make a splash in the Web 2 world? I think it's less about making a splash in the Web 3 world. It's about applying the Web 3 technology, having it in the background, and actually changing people's lives. Like, not because it's blockchain, because that was just like a good tool to use, if that makes sense. So I don't know. That's my take on kind of all the projects. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think to address the other side of the coin, there are a lot of things that NFT projects can learn. I saw a couple of weeks ago with the sort of big scare that we had around SVB over the weekend, numerous NFT projects being like, holy shit, 95% of our treasury is in USDC, like pull it all out immediately. And that just to me screams really poor risk management, really poor treasury management. There are many things that I think self-organized communities and decentralized communities can learn from, like processes that institutions have been operating under for like 200 years plus, or 2,000 years in the case of governance, right? There's definitely, there are pros and cons. It's on one hand really fascinating to see well-executed NFT projects and other Web3 projects do DeFi really, really well. But on the other hand, sometimes it's disastrous. And so I think there's an obvious aversion to process. I think in that sense that's being addressed by like DAO tooling, which is really just codified process. It's a word that people tend to be allergic to. But I think I'm optimistic that over time these sorts of things will be better systematized in terms of how goal setting is done, how treasury management is done, how like all the boring stuff people don't want to talk about. But really are the foundational aspects of really solid projects.
Yeah, maybe another thing too that NFT Web3 can learn from institutions is like the institutions, like if you think about the S&P, like the market actually judges them based off of what their earnings, what they're actually producing. In Web3, there's been this hysteria where you can just talk and then you just get money thrown at you, and then like that's it, it's the slow rug. And that's like 98% of projects. And so it's like we need to somehow bring back like the market forces of like if you're not executing and delivering value, then again, like why are you getting those valuations? Why is the floor price like that, et cetera? So I think just being critical in the same way that we are with Web2 companies could go a long way. We can actually see some real value in Web3.
Yeah, that's a good thing about what I learned from working with a museum is like things operate slow, and I think in Web3 we tend to get on this rocket ship and start flying, and then we start thinking everybody should operate on that level. So I had to really slow it down and take some patience with because institutions in the next 5, 6, 7 years are going to start embracing a lot more of this technology, and we've seen it with LACMA and Mattey donating all those tokens to their museum, and so it's when you see big museums like that get on board, it's kind of like nice to point to something that was done right and said, this is kind of a template we can use going forward with these museums and institutions. So.
Yeah, there's always an interesting tension, isn't there, between like move fast and break things and do things properly. I think as institutions adopt our tech, you're gonna have to be really careful navigating that. I work in several like custody type projects, and when you're a BNY Mellon like holding custody of billions and billions of dollars, there's zero room for like moving fast and break things. But on the other hand, I think there's definitely a lot that institutions can learn around moving quickly and being more nimble, I'd hope.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to add there other than I think it's about that balance. You need to strike that balance, whether it's like at a company level or a project level. Yeah. So it's like move fast and break things for the project, but maybe as a company, make sure that you're doing things the right way, you're executing properly. I mean, I saw in the Wall Street Journal, this is kind of tangentially related, that FTX, there was like no management whatsoever. So it's not even just like Web3 projects, it's the companies that we think are like the most institutional in this space that are like, tossing all risk management kind of out the window. So, and that was something that, we know the effects of what that did to the whole Web3 space too. So I think, like you said, it's a matter of being institutional, having the processes and systems, which is boring and no one wants to talk about, but then also move fast and break things with the projects to deliver value to the audience. So that's how I see it, kind of the balance of the two.
Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, we are taking small steps toward progress, but we cannot fuck it up while we're here. We can't keep failing, and to an extent, failing is great. We're able to learn, but we can't keep screwing up, or else we will never stand a chance. So, I mean, that being said, there's a lot of progress being made in the macro level still. Ticketmaster has had a very successful NFT project where they released thousands of NFTs to fans of a certain band, and instead of the whole Taylor Swift fiasco where nobody could get tickets, those fans had a seamless experience in being able to get an early drop of tickets. And then who knows what other additional utility you can provide on top of that. Maybe the holders get a private concert once a year. Maybe you get a free drink at the concert. The small things like that, it's going to take a while, but there are many, many applications of the technology that we can succeed on. And it does not have to be a PFP collection that, again, is just all talk. There are ways that we can provide value here, and yeah, there's a lot of things I want to say. What's on your guys' mind? If you could scream one thing from the rooftops, this gets me fired up. If you could scream one thing to the world and let them know that we are here to stay and we are legit and we are not crazy, what would it be?
I'm biased because I work in the NFT DeFi space. I would scream from the rooftops, like, look what's happening in the NFT finance space and how I think that's going to change the world, not just for NFTs, but for other assets. So really boring answer, but that's my world. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. I'd draw attention to the fact that some of the smartest people in the world are working in this space. we were just chatting ahead before the panel, just remarking how the breadth of experience and knowledge is just massive in a conference like NFT.NYC. You've got people of all shapes and colors and sizes and interests and IQ, but that spread is really high. And so, I find it really remarkable that, genuinely some of the smartest people that I've ever met at Google and Netflix, working in AI and cryptography, and the ZK gigabrains are there. They're doing a lot of stuff in the shadows, and they're enabling some foundational tech to be built that's going to be absolutely transformative. Not only that, then you have incredible economists, researchers, lawyers, enabling us to do this in a proper way. And so I think I'd really just want to highlight this is legitimately, I think, a new frontier where the smartest people in the world are actually really excited about.
Snaps.
We got 10 seconds, so I'll just wrap it up here. And it was, I think just being in the space, and we get experience every day, and I don't think you have to have education or anything like that to be an asset in the space. And I think in reaching out and putting the right foot forward, good things happen. So, and I was fortunate enough to be able to do that.
Thank you guys. Thank you everyone. Let's look
you.
alive. Let's do this.
Thank you.